The Wolves of Cernogratz by Saki, Part 1. Are there any old legends attached to the castle? Asked Conrad of his sister. Conrad was a prosperous Hamburg merchant, but he was the one poetically dispositioned member of an eminently practical family. The Baroness Grubel shrugged her plump shoulders. There are always legends hanging about these old places. They are not difficult to invent and they cost nothing. In this case, there is a story that when anyone dies in the castle, all the dogs in the village and the wild beasts in forest howl the night long. It would not be pleasant to listen to, would it? It would be weird and romantic, said the Hamburg merchant. Anyhow, it isn't true, said the Baroness complacently. Since we bought the place, we have had proof that nothing of the sort happens. When the old mother-in-law died last springtime, we all listened, but there was no howling. It is just a story that lends dignity to the place without costing anything. The story is not as you have told it, said Amalie, the grey old governess. Everyone turned and looked at her in astonishment. She was wont to sit silent and prim and faded in her place at table, never speaking unless someone spoke to her, and there were few who troubled themselves to make conversation with her. Today a sudden volubility had descended on her. She continued to talk, rapidly and nervously, looking straight in front of her and seeming to address no one in particular. It is not when anyone dies in the castle that the howling is heard. It was when one of the Cernogratz family died here that the wolves came from far and near and howled at the edge of the forest just before the death hour. There were only a few couple of wolves that had their lairs in this part of the forest, but at such a time the keepers say there would be scores of them, gliding about in the shadows and howling in chorus, and the dogs of the castle and the village and all the farms round would bay and howl in fear and anger at the wolf chorus, and as the soul of the dying one left its body, a tree would crash down in the park. That is what happened when a Cernogratz died in his family castle. But for a stranger dying here, of course no wolf would howl and no tree would fall. Oh no! There was a note of defiance, almost of contempt in her voice as she said the last words. The well-fed, much too well-dressed Baroness stared angrily at the dowdy old woman who had come forth from her usual and seemly position of effacement to speak so disrespectfully. You seem to know quite a lot about the von Cernogratz legends, Fräulein Schmidt, she said sharply. I did not know that family histories were among the subjects you are supposed to be proficient in. The answer to her taunt was even more unexpected and astonishing than the conversational outbreak which had provoked it. I am a von Cernogratz myself, said the old woman. That is why I know the family history. You are von Cernogratz? You? Came in an incredulous chorus. When we became very poor, she explained, and I had to go out and give teaching lessons, I took another name. I thought it would be more in keeping. But my grandfather spent much of his time as a boy in this castle, and my father used to tell me many stories about it. And of course I knew all the family legends and stories. When one has nothing left to one but memories, one girds and dusts them with special care. I little thought when I took service with you that I should one day come with you to the old home of my family. I could wish it had been anywhere else. There was silence when she finished speaking, and then the Baroness turned the conversation to a less embarrassing topic than family histories. But afterwards, when the old governess had slipped away quietly to her duties, there arose a clamour of derision and disbelief. It was an impertinence, snapped out the Baron, his protruding eyes taking on a scandalized expression. Fancy the woman talking like that at our table. She almost told us we were nobodies, and I don't believe a word of it. She is just Schmid and nothing more. She has been talking to some of the peasants about the old Cernogratz family and raked up their history and their stories. "She wants to make herself out of some consequence," said the Baroness. "She knows she will soon be past work and she wants to appeal to our sympathies. Her grandfather, indeed." The Baroness had the usual number of grandfathers, but she never boasted about them. "I dare say her grandfather was a pantry boy or something of the sort in the castle," sniggered the Baron. "That part of the story may be true." The merchant from Hamburg said nothing. He had seen tears in the old woman's eyes when she spoke of guarding her memories. Or being of an imaginative disposition, he thought he had. "I shall give her notice to go as soon as the New Year festivities are over," said the Baroness. "Till then I shall be too busy to manage without her." But she had to manage without her all the same. For in the cold biting weather after Christmas, the old governess fell ill and kept to her room.